Well, we're really glad you're here. I'm Bridget Dwyer. I'm the Vice Dean for Academic Excellence and Engagement in the School of Arts and Sciences. I'm glad to be with you all here today. So welcome to today's Knowledge by the Slice event. This is a lunchtime conversation series that is generously funded by the Adolf and Felicia Sloan Fund, which supports programming and lectures at the School of Arts and Sciences. So we are really excited today to be focusing on Latin America, a diverse and fascinating place that is racing into the future while also simultaneously grappling with challenges and stark contrasts. With me today, we have Tulia Falleti, who is a professor of political science, and Letícia Marteleto, Presidential Penn Compact Professor of Sociology. Tulia Falleti is a professor of political science, and she's affiliated with the Center of Latin American and Latinx Studies, Gender, Sexuality, and Women's Studies, and she's a senior fellow at the Leonard Davis Institute for Health Economics. She researches decentralization, federalism, authoritarianism, participation, and Indigenous people, mostly from a qualitative perspective. Tulia, as a principal investigator of a transdisciplinary team, was awarded a $5 million grant from the Mellon Foundation's Just Futures initiative. With partners throughout the Americas, this team has researched dispossessions in Americas, the extraction of bodies, land, and cultural heritage from conquista to the present. She is here to speak today regarding her work on state-led dispossessions and institutional displacement. Letícia Marteleto is a social demographer who uses data, cultural knowledge, and sociological theory to understand how inequality affects fertility, education, and health. In her latest research, Letícia has been examining how structural shocks such as Zika and COVID-19 impact women's lives. The goal of this large data collection effort is to answer questions about women's reproductive outcomes in the face of epidemics. She is here today to speak on inequality, education, and adolescent fertility in Brazil. So together, Tulia and Letícia will shed light on how structural inequalities in Latin America are produced, reproduced, and resisted across policy, geography, and also through the lived experiences of people. So I will be your moderator today for this presentation. And so following their presentations, we'll engage in question and answers, and we will have plenty of time for that. So with that, let's welcome our first presenter, and we'll start with Tulia.
Well, thank you so much to the Office of the Dean of SAS for giving me the opportunity to share my research with you today. Thank you to all of you for coming in this beautiful fall day, including some very familiar and dear faces. During the past 4 years, in the context of the grant that the Associate Dean just mentioned, I've been working with an interdisciplinary team of 7 other Penn faculty, in addition to many others, postdoctoral fellows, graduate fellows, graduate and undergraduate RAs, as well as research collaborators, activists, and artists based in 12 countries throughout the Americas. And one fabulous grant manager who has made all of these also possible, Vivian Didre Rodriguez Rocha. With generous funding from the Mellon Foundation, we've been coordinating our research and teaching within this project that seeks to document the dispossessions of land, bodies, and cultural heritage from the colonial encounter to the present, as well as the processes of resistance to dispossessions and, where relevant, policies of restoration and repair. Our team has deployed different methodological approaches from participatory action research, working with communities, to recovery of archives, such as did Anne Farnsworth Alvear in Colombia, in the region of Chocó, or archival research, as I've done with some of my collaborators. We presented our work in different formats. Here you have one of our international conferences in 2022, as well as workshops. Our COPI and Farnsworth Alvear coordinated ethnohistory workshops at Penn for graduate students throughout the Americas who came during the summers in 2022 and 2023 to learn about ethnohistory and use the archives that are available in our city for their own research, as well as arts exhibits and performances, mostly led by Jonathan Katz and his collaborators, that allowed the members of our team to connect with diverse and wide audiences throughout the Americas. We've also created a public-facing website, of which I will talk very soon, which presents some of our collaborations, research, and teaching. Is dia.upenn.edu, and it's available in both Spanish and English. Throughout this research project, I found that the concept of dispossession was particularly generative and useful to bring about this larger team together to study the reality of indigenous peoples in the Americas, with my geographic interests being particularly about Latin America. By dispossession, as you see in this slide, I mean the process by which colonial powers, states, or individuals separated originary peoples from the territories they ancestrally occupied, or the territories that they used to reproduce their existence. Moreover, in that process of separating people from their land, the formerly occupied or used territories became property, whether crown property, church property, public land, or private land. The term dispossession has had a recent uptake, mostly due to its use in decolonial studies. The concept, however, is not new, and I want to share with you what is possibly one of its first uses in the English language, which was by Thomas Paine, one of the founding fathers of the United States. In his essay, Agrarian Reform from 1797, he argued that in its natural state, the earth was common property of the human race, and that every person would have been born to property. Cultivation, he said, added value to the earth. He said, at least one of the greatest natural improvements ever made by human invention was cultivation, which had created earth, had added to earth tenfold value. But then he said, but the landed monopoly that began with cultivation had produced the greatest evil. It has dispossessed more than half the inhabitants of every nation of their natural inheritance, without providing for them, as ought to have been done as an indemnification for that loss. And this thereby created a species of poverty and wretchedness that did not exist before. He then continued to advocate the case of the persons thus dispossessed. He said it was a right and not a charity, that he was pleading for a national fund to compensate every adult over 21 for the loss that they had suffered due to the landed monopoly. We see that Thomas Paine already in 1797 identified the problem that the monopoly of land had dispossessed all poor people of the right to inheritance of the earth that, according to him, belonged to everyone. In Spanish, I found the term despojo when I was in the archive of the the Archivo General de la Nación, the National General Archive in Argentina, in the title of a colonial map from the late 1700s that said that a commission of the Municipal Council of Salta, by request of the protector of the quote-unquote Indios, was showing in this map the despojo, la dispossession, which had taken place of the peoples and lands of that area, which represents the northwest of Argentina, what is now Salta. Working on our collective project and with a dedicated team of postdoctoral fellows, graduate and undergraduate students, we collected more than 1,800 maps of colonial and Republican Latin America displaying territorial occupation by indigenous peoples over time. We coded those maps such that they can be searched by peoples, and our database contains more than 10,000 names of indigenous peoples used in these maps, which we grouped into over 4,200 ethnonyms, or names of indigenous peoples that occupied mostly what is Latin America nowadays. They can also be searched by the year of production of the map, among other variables. And while clearly colonial or Republican states products, these are mostly official maps, they display indigenous peoples throughout the continent and throughout history. I would like to, there is a video teaser and there are 4 episodes.
The map is not the territory. It is perhaps an idea of a territory. Always determined by the intentions and beliefs of those who produce it, maps establish boundaries. They grant possession and deny it. A vision of the world which is not the world itself, but shapes it. We use maps because we believe they orient us, that they will take us where we want to go, where we are, or where we come from. Maps warn us and alert us, but also encourage our imagination. They feed our happy dreams and our worst nightmares. They tell us which way to go and which to avoid. They orient and disorient.
Well, we can move on. You got the idea. There is this extensive collection of maps together with this 1-minute teaser. There are 4 other videos that will soon be in our website, where you can also see some of the features of these maps. And I should say the script for this video that you just watched, as well as others, was worked by a team led by one of our postdoctoral fellows, Maria Laura Pensa. So in all ways, this has been collective work. Besides the videos, these maps sites, as I mentioned, allows you to search the database. What we want to do with these maps is to visibilize the fact that through the doctrine of discovery first and legal instruments such as terra nullius or uti posseditis, the legal mechanisms used by the colonial powers and later the Republican states, the indigenous peoples were dispossessed throughout the Americas, both during colonial and Republican times. Those doctrines, as we know, were coupled since colonial times with the spread of diseases, economic exploitation, forced movement, war, genocide, and in the 20th century, also policies of assimilation via mestizaje, which were very common throughout Latin American countries. Despite all these processes of erasure, there is in this collection of maps, the vast majority of them official maps, an overwhelming presence of indigenous peoples and nations throughout the continent, from colonial encounter to the present. Since the late 1980s, and as a consequence of coordinated indigenous mobilization and changes in international norms, such as the Convention 169 of the International Labor Organization of 1989, or the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples of 2007. In Latin America, we have experienced processes of constitutional reform that have acknowledged the pre-existence of those originary peoples. The constitutions of 1988 in Brazil, 1991 in Colombia, 1994 in Argentina, 2008 in Ecuador, 2009 in Bolivia, among others, are all incorporating the recognition of indigenous peoples or nations. The same with the Indigenous Law of 1993 in Chile. Multiple countries have adopted policies such as multicultural education, intercultural health, land demarcations, and land returns, such as in the cases of Bolivia and Brazil. However, as we evaluate these policies, we see that many of them remain what in political science we call parchment institutions, institutions that are in the paper, but not in reality. This is especially true when it comes to what the indigenous scholar Sherry Lightfoot calls the hard rights of indigenous peoples, such as the rights to self-determination, autonomy, or collective land rights. Despite some advances towards recognitions of indigenous peoples, progress along those rights is very slow. Even worse, in some cases, such as Uruguay, the government still denies the existence of originary peoples, such as the Charrúa, saying that they don't exist anymore, even though they live and breed in the country. In others, such as Argentina, indigenous communities are faced with systematic violations of the right to free, prior, and informed consent. And we see this, for instance, in areas where there is extraction of minerals. Here, there is a photo from the Comunidad Mapuche Caicipaín that has been literally occupied by the state's-led oil company for the extraction of oil, and has had decades of legal and social mobilization in order to have their territory repaired and people compensated for the effects of contamination on their health. In Chile, Mapuche people are also subject to systematic state violence, particularly when their land claims coincides with, again, regions of high extraction or otherwise of highly economic value. We also see this at the Lake Correntoso in the south of Argentina, where due to the high value of property in that area close to Villa Langostura, the community is facing the threat of eviction. Earlier this week, with my students in Latin American politics, some of whom are there, we were reviewing transitional justice mechanisms that were used in the transition from authoritarian regimes, military regimes of the 60s and 70s in Latin America, to democracy in the 80s and 90s. And as we were reviewing these transitional mechanisms, truth and reconciliation commissions, trials, I couldn't help that we are, in Latin America, in dire need of transitional justice for indigenous peoples. In 2023, Pope Francis rejected the doctrine of discovery that had allowed the colonizers to take over the land occupied by indigenous peoples and nations. However, we still need truth and reconciliation commissions to investigate the violence and genocide perpetrated by our Republican states against indigenous nations such as the Mapuche in Argentina or the Maya in Guatemala. And ideally, as Spain proposed almost 250 years ago, there would be territorial reparations to compensate for the massive dispossession of land rights. Thank you.
So, first of all, I'd like to thank the college for this opportunity to be here talking about my work, and also for all of you, for being here. And I'd like to acknowledge the funders for those two projects. These were funded by NIH, National Institutes of Health, through two R01 grants awarded to me, each about $3.5 million. And what I'm going to show you today is one part of this broader project. And within the talk, I will also point out to the big picture of the project and collaborators and etc. Okay, so Latin American countries are among the most unequal in the world, right? So here we have the Gini index, which the highest the number, the highest the concentration of income in the hands of the top, the richest people. You can see, though, that the US, which is the green in the bottom, is competing very hard with Latin American countries to become, also extremely unequal. It's also well known that there's high ethno-racial inequality in Latin America. Again, very much like this country. And so what that means is higher proportions of income in the hands of those who are considered white, or in this work here by some colleagues, Saperstein and Bailey. This is not my work yet, it's motivation. What this shows is that, the lighter the skin tone, the highest the income, right? The household income. So it's no surprise also that when we look at other outcomes and opportunities, such as education, health, and reproductive health, we also find inequalities, right? In access, in outcomes, in well-being. In the case of reproductive health and reproductive lives, things such as healthcare, access to contraceptive, adverse outcomes during and post-pregnancy. So what I'm hoping to do today, my main goal today, is to introduce a new dimension of inequality and discrimination that has not been studied. I'll show you a little bit of the framework for this, the data collection, which is within the broader scope of this funded work by NIH, and some empirical evidence and implications of that work. And this is coming in with my collaborators, Luis, who is here, Alexandre Gorimai and Sneha Kumar. It's forthcoming in the American Sociological Review. So parts of it I will show today. So what do I call childbearing norms? They are the collective of individual attitudes about others' childbearing. So it's the approval that women get or don't get from having children or remaining childless. So we will argue that this is central in social life, and it influences both everyday interactions and policy priorities in ways that childbearing norms often reflect and reinforce social stratification. So, for example, and I will argue that this is globally relevant. This is not only in Latin America or in Brazil, which is the country that I will show you more evidence from. Given the high levels of polarization on childbearing norms globally, this is relevant everywhere. So let me give you a few examples. In the past, this was evident in the early 20th century eugenics movement and Malthusian fears, which led to the sterilization of low-income, non-white, and disabled individuals. Also, here we have the population bomb in the 70s, the fears of population explosion, and the one-child policy in China. This is also was also relevant at that time, the fears of overpopulation in the late 20th century, which prompted fertility control across the global south at that time. So we can also see this in the continual targeting of minoritized women in neo-Malthusian framings of environmental concerns. This idea that Earth needs fewer people to beat the climate crisis, scientists say, which is something that's current, but also blaming specific countries or areas in the global south for that overpopulation, right? Or for that issue. Or the population pressure in specific places. So this is very targeted. It's the point I'm trying to make. And then also currently, numerous examples illustrate how people, women in this case, who deviate from childbearing norms, contend with sanctions that involve some kind of social disapproval and stigma. We recall the scapegoating of women without children that in this country last year were derogatorily called childless cat ladies and blamed for social unraveling and so-called baby bust. In what happened in this country last year, right? And so this is the cover of the New Yorker, for example, and saying, childless cat lady inexplicably enjoying life. We can see similar, this is in Portuguese, in Brazil, women who choose not to have children are the target of social pressure. They are called selfish. And so we'll see all of that. And also here we have a former president of Brazil, Bolsonaro, who actually defended the sterilization of poor people as a policy way to combat crime and poverty at that time. And he was president at that time, and he was trying to pass a measure towards that. So this shows the relevance of this topic globally. Okay. So what we propose is a theoretical model that we call a theory of socially sanctioned reproduction to understand that. And that model has three pillars. In the first one, we look at discrimination based on social attributes of race, like I showed you in the beginning, the high race-oriented inequalities in Latin American countries. So one being race, the other being socioeconomic status, and age and parity, right? The idea that, women would, with children, without children, or age, like too old, too young, like teenage mothers, right? It's all like in that realm of the stigma and the sanctions. So we will argue that to study childbearing norms, we have in stratification in childbearing norms, we have to look at those factors. And we have to look at them in an intersectional way, right? It's not only one factor, but it's a combination of those. And I'll show you in a minute what that means. And then the third pillar of this model is simply that we have to look at not only the people who are being evaluated, but at the evaluators, right? We have to look at the people who are evaluating and their characteristics as well. We apply this simply to childbearing norms, but this can be, you can imagine how this can be extended to marital unions and other important dimensions of reproduction and family life. So that's what I told you. And I'll focus on Brazil in this case, large, multiracial, extremely unequal country. And that's where the DZC, the project, is located, and specifically in the state of Pernambuco in the northeast, which is where we have been collecting data for the last 6 years. So the DZC, what is this project? It's a multidisciplinary project. It's now housed at Penn when I came 2 years ago. And it's in partnership with US and Brazil-based collaborators. It's funded by NIH through NICG. Like I told you, the main goal of this project is to understand the demographic consequences of the Zika and COVID public health crisis in the case of Brazil, specifically women's reproductive trajectories. It's a mixed method data collection project, and we focus on women of reproductive age, ages 18 to 34, the youngest side of women of reproductive age. And this is in a nutshell what we have been doing. We have been first collecting administrative data and satellite data as well to add climate, because when we study the consequences of arboviral crisis, we are looking at climate as well. So we have this data. So that's the first component. We have done cognitive interviews, in-depth interviews in 2 moments in time. And we have been following a cohort of women, of 4,000 women. We are adding 2,000 more this year. It's a population-based panel, and we have followed them already for 3 years, waves 1, 2, and 3. We are now in the middle of wave 4 data collection, and we have 4 more waves to go. So this is a very rich panel data set. So if you are interested, come talk to me. There's a lot there to be explored. I'm showing you a small part here. We also have subwaves. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but what I present today is this conjoint experiment. What we did was, after wave 1, we sent the women who agreed to participate to be part of our panel, we sent them WhatsApp message. WhatsApp is way more used in Latin America than text. Nobody really uses text. And so we sent a few questions. And in one of them, we asked our respondents in the circumstances during COVID if they would advise these women to get pregnant or not. In other words, asking for the approval. Would you advise them to be pregnant during COVID? And as I told you earlier, we look at 4 attributes and we randomize them: race, SES, parity, and age. What that means that we randomize is that I'll show you in a second. They look at this profile side by side, these profiles of women, and the characteristics of the women are change for every respondent. So they get random attributes here, and they will answer if they approve or disapprove of their childbearing. We have 64 profiles, the combination of those 4 characteristics. And what this does is that it removes any social desirability. If I asked directly, right, this removes that. And I'm not going to talk too much about this, but it's a cool way of doing this. And sure enough, we find that women with low SES, in this case, how did we define it? We said manicurists versus lawyers. So women who were manicurists, they said that of low prestige occupations, low SES, received less approval of their childbearing. That's what that orange thing means there. Now, I told you that what we are proposing in this theoretical model is intersectional, which means that we want to combine those characteristics that I mentioned to you, those attributes. So what we look next is their occupation mixed with other characteristics. And sure enough, what we find is that Black women, the second row there, are the ones that receive the Black women of low status occupation are the ones, they receive less approval than Black women of high status occupation. So what that means is it's really low SES Black women who receive the least approval for their childbearing. If I look at age, parity, and other characteristics and intersect with SES. Now, this is the difference as well between high and low SES occupations, but then what we find again that it's Black women, so Black women of age 25, their difference by SES, it's higher in favor of high SES women. Black women older, Black women with no children. So you're starting to see a pattern here, right? In the sense that it is what is sanctioned, what the stigma here is with the childbearing of a very specific group, right? It's Black women, it's low SES Black women, and younger or older and with no children. So we are calling this discrimination in childbearing. And when we look at the role of the evaluators, because so far what I told you, we compared the profiles, right, that women saw on that experiment. The next step to see who would receive more approval, the next step that we have is looking at the respondents' characteristics, which means like the women who are giving their approval or not. What are their own characteristics, and does it matter, right? And what we find is that it really is the white women and not the Black women in our sample who think that low SES Black women should not have childbearing. So this is coming from white women. There's a significant difference here. I'm not going to bore you with like the details, but it's really the white respondents, which we call it's an evidence of othering. So just to wrap up, what are the take-home messages here? We developed a theory of socially sanctioned reproduction. It's a novel frontier in the study of inequality and discrimination that incorporates the socio-political context. It is a theory that looks at discrimination, it's intersectional, and looks at in-group, out-group dynamics. This is a highly relevant theme in a period of growing polarization of childbearing everywhere. You can imagine doing the same exercise here, looking at the childbearing of immigrants versus, citizens, not citizens, those in two-parent families, same-sex couples. We run a conjoint experiment along our data collection, larger data collection, and we find that it's really low SES Black women, they face an additional layer of discrimination, in addition to everything that we have seen in terms of having, lower levels of access to reproductive care, healthcare, etc. This knowledge can inform programs focused on improving the well-being of childbearing age and pregnant women. I'd like just to acknowledge, collaborators, a project like this, there's many people involved. We have a website in English and in Portuguese. Check us out. We are on Instagram and other social media. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those really rich presentations. So I'm going to invite the two of you over here, if you wouldn't mind. And we have about 10 minutes for questions. People have questions about the research here. Then maybe while you all continue to think of your questions, why don't I ask, I was sitting next to you, Dr. Falleti, and I noticed you were taking a lot of notes during the other presentation. Would you mind sharing a little bit of your thoughts? And then maybe I will ask the same in reverse.
Well, thank you. Letícia, I was wondering what is the birth rate for white and Black women in Brazil, and to what extent do you think that could be part of the societal norm framing? Besides discrimination and racism, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Tulia. So the birth rate in Brazil now in general, it's low. It's lower than in this country. It's below replacement level. So it's around 1.6 children per women. And surprisingly, the birth rate or the fertility rate for Black and white women is very similar now. The trend was it's higher among Black women, but it is not as high as it was in the 60s and 70s when the whole fear of population, explosion or overpopulation happened. So it is surprisingly similar. Yeah. Thank you.
So one of the things that I understand to be true about birth rates is that one of the most effective ways to reduce the birth rate is to educate women. So I'm wondering if you can say I'm assuming that the Black women in your study also tend to be lower socioeconomic status. So I'm wondering if you have any idea why their birth rate is about the same as the women of higher socioeconomic status who are presumably more educated, probably.
No, thank you. So I think I would start by saying that the issue that we are facing now, both here and there, is low fertility, right? So that high fertility is not it's not necessarily a problem anymore. Having said that, it is true that low SES women do have a higher level of fertility. But what I'd like to think or to center the discussion is really on reproductive autonomy, which is giving women, or I should say, well, in this study it's women, but people who would like to be pregnant, their autonomy to decide and to what they would like to do and how many children and when. Those things are not happening yet. We have, for example, in Brazil, things like abortion is not legal. Contraception is not necessarily accessible to everybody, and so it is difficult to implement those things. Number one. Number two, even if they were here, what we see is that their childbearing is not seen the same way, right? Which is a layer of discrimination, right?
Excuse me. I can project. It's really fun.
It's being recorded, so it would be helpful if you can talk.
Oh, okay. All right. Oops. Okay. Sorry. I have a question because I did some work during my master's in Piauí, actually. And so, yeah, but it's very, very rural out there. And the women who I was meeting, I mean, they would have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kids. And they only got electricity out there, a decade ago. And so I'm wondering if you can speak to like a rural versus more urban environment and the role that technology has played in this inequality that you're seeing and the autonomy in which we see rural versus more urban women having.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's amazing that you were working in Piauí. It's a state also in the Northeast, around that same area. So I will say a few things. One is our sample is, I want to say 90% urban. So this is what we are capturing, more urban women, because Pernambuco is the area of Pernambuco that we are studying. Brazil also is now 90% urban. So when we get those numbers, like the means, right? That's why we have low fertility and etc. I'm not saying that outliers do not happen or etc. But having said that, it is true that in the few rural areas, access is an issue, right? And fertility is still high in those urban rural areas. Yes. But again, reproductive autonomy, right? In the sense that if they want to have 8 or 9 children, they should have the conditions for that. That would be the most important thing, right? Yeah, thank you.
So I had a question for Dr. Falleti. The video that you shared, I mean, both of your research and data sets are just so rich and so full of incredible amounts of information. The video that you showed was beautiful. And it was particularly captured with the part that was really talking about how maps tell stories. They create opportunities and also make boundaries as well. And, you know, I'm thinking that sounds like a sociological context as a sociologist. I think about that. So I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about kind of that component, the storytelling component of maps and how this really fits in with the research and the work and maybe even in the community there.
Thank you so much for the question. And I think one of the greatest pleasures of these projects for me, but I believe for many of us, was to work across disciplinary boundaries. And the postdoc who led the script making for these videos is a scholar who is an anthropologist, as well as she has studied Spanish for her PhD, and we work collaboratively in later stages of the production, and we recruited a very talented team of video makers who are also storytellers and who are very used to educating wider audiences. So, you know, one important goal for our website is to reach a wide audience. We have a curriculum section in the website, which is, you know, directed to high school educators as well as college educators. We want students, both, you know, advanced high school students as well as undergraduate students, to see this website as a resource. So I think we interdisciplinary, in an interdisciplinary way, we try to tap and exploit all the tropes we knew about how to spread the word. And, you know, the videos, the storytelling, but also the art and the exhibits, the performances, you know, that allowed us to reach wider audiences throughout Latin America and now the US as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tulia, I was just actually going to ask you more about the art and the music, maybe, if there was any. I read an article with my class a few weeks ago about mariachi music and the ways in which its origin is not clear. And it could actually come out of some indigenous, you know, musical traditions that then got co-opted by the state to try to represent the country, right, as a whole. So are you seeing this in these various stories that you're telling, or is it showing up in map making, or how does art play a role in both being part of indigenous culture and yet sometimes being possessed by others to represent that region?
Yes, I think you've asked several questions, so I'll try to, but all very interconnected and fascinating. One of our graduate fellows, Humberto, oh gosh, yeah, the memory, it's terrible, but I'll get back to you. He graduated with a PhD from the Spanish department here. Was looking precisely at the distinction between art and art crafts, or artesanía in Spanish, and art, you know, and precisely pointing to the fact that very often indigenous art is marketized as artesanía with far, you know, lower value. One of our co-PIs, Jonathan Katz, was very purposeful about trying to recruit indigenous and Afro-descendant artists to the exhibits that he helped put together throughout Latin America. And I have to say, you know, some of those artists then were part of the Venice Biennale in 2024. So it was so, you know, rewarding to see members of our team or collaborators of members of our team or the artists who were sponsored through these exhibits to get that level of recognition. Music, we had one ethnomusicologist among our collaborators. He works in the Andes, in the northern part of Argentina, in the border between Argentina and Bolivia. And he did a very interesting essay, which we are considering for our edited volume, which we are putting together now, on instruments, pan instruments, wind instruments from the Andes and how they survive to this day. But we don't have anything on mariachi music. But you know, it's very interesting to see how colonialism has worked in different areas, including music and art. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. We'll go right here.
So, Dr. Falleti, you mentioned that you study a lot of indigenous communities across like different countries in Latin America. And I'm wondering if you could talk about how there's any kind of like collaboration between those indigenous communities, because I'm sure they each face very unique struggles, but a lot of the issues they're facing are also like common and shared. So how they're kind of working together on that.
That's a great question. Thank you so much. When you work with communities, I work with communities in the north of Argentina, Wichí communities, and in the south of Argentina and Chile, Mapuche communities. That's where I've done like field work. And when you are in the field, you realize how sometimes specific some of the problems are, specific to the context and so on. But I would say through international organizations, there has been international networks that have allowed leaders of communities to come together to put forward their demands. I would say usually they have been more successful at the international level than at the domestic level. The International Court for Human Rights, for instance, has advocated for indigenous rights that then, you know, are fought at the national level. And those networks have been very important as of lately, especially for women indigenous leaders. And what we are seeing is a heightened leadership of indigenous women, thanks to these international networks partially.
Well, thank you all so much. We are nearing the end of our time together. So I want to thank you all for coming. Let's give our two presenters a round of applause. Thank you.